Hello, and welcome. Learn English through story. In 2025, the world held its breath. A familiar name returned to power. Strong words, fast decisions, global tension. Some people felt hope, others felt fear. But beyond opinions, beyond noise, what really happened? This is not a speech. This is not a debate. This is a story about power, about systems under pressure, about a year that tested a nation. Listen carefully, because this story is not only about Donald Trump, it is about what happens when leadership meets reality. Let the story begin. Chapter 1. The Return. No one expected. The night was cold. Washington was quiet, too quiet. Inside the White House, the lights were on again. A familiar figure walked through the halls, slow steps, straight back, no smile. In January 2025, Donald Trump returned to power. Many people said it would never happen. Experts spoke with confidence. Polls showed numbers. Television panels laughed, argued, and moved on. They were wrong. This return did not start with celebration. It started with disbelief. Around the world, leaders watched in silence. In Europe, newspapers used the word shock. In Asia, markets paused, then moved again. In the United States, families turned off the TV and asked one question: how did this happen again? Trump did not return as a new man. He did not promise a softer voice. He did not change his message. The country around him had changed instead. In the years before 2025, trust broke slowly. People listened less. They voted less. They believed less. Politics felt far away. Language felt empty. Promises felt recycled. Trump spoke differently. Not better, not kinder, but simpler, short sentences. Clear enemies, clear goals. For some, this was dangerous. For others, it felt honest. On election night, there were no big speeches at first, no long explanations, just numbers on screens, state by state, county by county. When the result became clear, silence returned. Not cheers, not riots, just a pause. The pause before reality. The media moved fast. Headlines shouted. Commentators warned of chaos. Old clips played again and again. But something strange happened. People did not panic. They went to work. They checked prices. They watched markets open. Life continued. The world did not end overnight. This was the first surprise of 2025. Trump's return was not a revolution. It was a response. A response to slow systems, to endless debate, to leaders who spoke carefully but acted slowly. This does not mean Trump was right. It means many people were tired. In his first days back, Trump did not travel abroad. He did not seek applause. He stayed inside the system. Orders were signed. Meetings were short. Language was direct. Supporters felt relief. Opponents felt fear. Most people felt uncertainty, and uncertainty is powerful. The global reaction was mixed. Some investors pulled back, others waited. Some saw opportunity. One thing was clear: the old rules were no longer trusted. Trump's return forced one uncomfortable truth. Democracy does not only choose leaders, it exposes frustration. For years, analysts focused on Trump's personality, his tone, his words, his anger. They missed something else. Why so many people stopped listening to everyone else? In small towns, people talked about jobs. In cities, they talked about rent. Online, people talked about being ignored. Trump did not fix these problems in the past, but he named them loudly. And in 2025, loud mattered more than polite. This chapter is not about praise. It is not about blame. It is about understanding the moment. Trump did not return because the system was strong. He returned because many felt it was weak. The question was no longer, do you like him? The question became, do you trust anyone else? As Trump stood again behind the presidential desk, the world leaned forward. Not because it loved him, not because it hated him, but because 2025 had begun. And nobody was sure what would come next. The return was complete. And the real story was just starting. Chapter 2. The Economy Test. The first real test came fast, not a speech, not a tweet. The economy. In early 2025, fear moved faster than facts. Experts warned of danger. Markets listened. People waited. For years, many believed one idea. If Donald Trump returned, the economy would break. High inflation, trade wars, market crashes. This was the story told again and again. But the economy does not listen to opinions. It answers with numbers. In January, markets opened calmly. Not strong, not weak, just stable. This surprised many people. Inflation was the first number everyone watched. Prices had hurt families for years. Food, rent, energy. People expected inflation to rise again. They waited for bad news. Instead, inflation slowed. Not everywhere, not for everyone. But the rise was weaker than predicted. This did not mean life became cheap. It meant the pressure stopped growing. For many families, this was important. Jobs were the second test. Would companies stop hiring? Would fear freeze the market? That did not happen. Employment stayed strong. Some sectors grew. Others slowed. Technology adjusted. Manufacturing stayed active. Small businesses survived, but carefully. The economy was not celebrating, but it was breathing. This was not luck alone. Trump's team moved quickly. Regulations were paused or simplified. Energy production increased. Taxes were discussed, not changed overnight. Speed mattered. Supporters said this was leadership. Critics said it was short-term thinking. Both could be right. The stock market told a mixed story. Some days were green. Some days were red. Investors were not in love. They were alert. Foreign investors watched closely. Some pulled money out. Others waited. Some moved money in. Uncertainty creates movement. One clear change appeared. The government stopped promising comfort. It promised pressure. Work harder. Produce more. Depend less. This message did not feel warm, but it felt clear. Energy prices became a key topic. More production lowered some costs. Environmental groups warned of long-term damage. The debate returned. Growth now, or safety later. Trump chose now. Again. Trade added more tension. Tariffs stayed on the table. Partners complained. Negotiations became harder. But companies adapted. Supply chains changed faster than expected. Prices rose in some areas. They fell in others. The predicted shock did not arrive. This confused many experts. They had seen this movie before and expected the same ending. But 2025 was different. Debt was still high. Housing was still expensive. Inequality was still real. This was not a golden age. It was a pause, a moment where the system did not collapse, even under pressure. And that mattered. For Trump's supporters, this was proof. For his critics, it was temporary. The truth sat in the middle. The economy survived the return. That alone changed the conversation. Media tone softened slightly. Fear became analysis. Predictions became cautious. People noticed. Trust did not return fully. But panic left the room, and something else became clear. The economy was not reacting to Trump. It was reacting to speed. Fast decisions. Clear direction. Less waiting. This does not mean the path was safe. Fast roads have sharp turns. But in early 2025, the engine did not stop. As winter turned to spring, one question replaced all others. If this is only the beginning, what happens when real pressure comes? The economy passed the first test, but the year was long, and the hardest choices, we were still ahead. Chapter 3: The Tariff Storm. The third test arrived with a familiar sound. A hard word, old, heavy, and controversial. Tariffs. In early 2025, the debate returned. Loud, emotional, predictable. When Donald Trump spoke about trade, markets listened, and critics reacted fast. They said prices would explode. They said families would suffer. They said history was repeating itself. The warnings filled the air. Tariffs were not new. Trump had used them before. Steel, technology, goods from China and other partners. In 2025, he did not remove them. He expanded them. The goal was clear: protect American production, force negotiation, reduce dependence. Supporters called it strength. Critics called it economic war. But trade is not a slogan. It is a chain. When one link moves, others move too. At first, companies froze. Orders paused. Shipments slowed. Managers asked questions. Should we raise prices? Should we move factories? Should we wait? Waiting became the first decision. Then, adaptation began. Some companies moved supply lines. Others changed suppliers. Some accepted lower profit. Prices did rise in certain goods: electronics, machinery, some food items, but not everywhere, not all at once. Consumers noticed changes, but panic did not spread. This confused many analysts. They expected a fast shock, a loud crash. Instead, they saw a slow shift. Factories inside the United States became busier. Not all, not forever, but enough to be noticed. Jobs appeared in some regions. Training returned in others. This did not mean a miracle. Costs were higher. Efficiency was lower. But control felt closer. Global partners reacted strongly. China answered with its own tariffs. Europe complained. Talks became tense. Trade meetings were shorter. Smiles disappeared. Documents replaced handshakes. The world economy slowed slightly, but it did not break. This created a strange moment. Everyone was unhappy, but no one collapsed. Tariffs showed their real nature. They are not weapons of victory. They are tools of pressure. Pressure hurts everyone, but it forces movement. Small businesses felt the strain most. They had fewer options, less room to adjust. Some closed. Others survived by raising prices slowly. Large companies had more power. They moved faster. They negotiated harder. This widened gaps. The government responded with words, not money, not rescue plans. The message stayed firm. Adapt or change. For many Americans, this felt harsh, but also honest. The system was no longer pretending. Media coverage returned to extremes. One day, disaster headlines. Next day, calm charts. People stopped listening to noise. They watched receipts. They watched paychecks. And something important happened. The tariff debate became less emotional. People asked better questions. Who really pays? How long does adaptation take? What happens next? The answer was not simple. Consumers paid some cost. Companies paid some cost. Partners paid some cost. No one escaped. But no one fell alone either. Trump did not claim victory. He claimed leverage. That word mattered. Tariffs were not about winning. They were about forcing a table. Some deals moved. Others froze. The process was slow, messy, uncomfortable, but it was real. By mid-2025, one truth became clear. The global trade system was fragile. Tariffs did not create that weakness. They exposed it, and exposure changes behavior. Companies planned differently. Governments spoke carefully. Markets stayed alert. The storm did not destroy the ship, but it changed its direction. As summer approached, the question grew sharper. If tariffs are pressure, how much pressure can the system take? The answer was still forming, and the next chapter would move the fight from factories and ports to allies, borders, and the meaning of America First. Chapter 4. America First Again. The message was not new, but in 2025, it sounded louder. America First. For Donald Trump, these words were not a slogan. They were a rule. In the first months of his return, the rule became clear. The United States would no longer carry others quietly. It would ask, it would demand, and sometimes it would walk away. This changed the mood of the world. Allies felt the shift first. Meetings became shorter. Statements became careful. Promises came with conditions. In Europe, leaders spoke of unity, but behind closed doors, worry grew. For years, the United States had paid more, protected more, led more. In 2025, that balance was questioned. Trump asked simple questions. Who pays? Who benefits? Who decides? There were no soft answers. NATO meetings became tense. Defense spending returned to the table. Deadlines appeared. Some countries agreed quickly. Others delayed. Some resisted. The tone was firm. Not friendly. Not hostile. Just firm. China watched closely. Trade talks slowed. Technology limits stayed. New lines were drawn. The relationship did not collapse, but it hardened. China adjusted its language, less warning, more planning. Both sides prepared for a long road. In Asia, partners reacted differently. Some moved closer to the United States. Others tried to stay neutral. Everyone felt the pressure. America First did not mean America alone, but it meant America decides first. This created clarity and fear. For decades, global systems depended on American patience. In 2025, patience was short. Trump did not travel often. He sent messages instead. Direct, clear. Negotiations became transactional. What do you offer? What do you expect? Emotion had little space. Supporters praised this style. They said it stopped endless talk. They said it forced fairness. Critics warned of isolation. They warned of broken trust. They warned of long-term damage. Both sides had reasons. Trade partners adjusted again. Some deals improved. Others stalled. The United States gained leverage in some talks, lost goodwill in others. This was the cost. America First changed how leadership looked. Less protection, more pressure. Smaller countries felt exposed. Larger ones felt challenged. The global system did not break, but it bent. Inside the United States, reactions were mixed. Some felt proud. Some felt uneasy. Jobs mattered more than image. Security mattered more than applause. The government focused on results, not popularity abroad. Energy exports increased. Defense sales grew. Diplomacy became harder. The world learned something important. The United States was still powerful, but it would not carry silence anymore. This forced countries to choose, align, adapt, or distance. Neutrality became difficult. By mid-2025, a pattern appeared. Where interests aligned, cooperation worked. Where they did not, talks froze. No illusions remained. America First was not a promise of peace. It was a warning of limits. Limits to patience. Limits to spending. Limits to compromise. The old comfort of automatic support was gone. This did not mean chaos. It meant responsibility moved outward. Countries had to act for themselves. Some grew stronger. Others struggled. As summer ended, the world accepted a new reality. The United States would lead, but on its own terms. The question now was not about power. It was about endurance. How long could this pressure last? And who would adjust fast enough? The answers would not come from speeches. They would come from borders, from people on the move, and from decisions made under stress. And that story was about to begin. Chapter 5. Noise, Screens, and Trust. The fifth test was not about money. It was not about trade. It was about truth. In 2025, the loudest battle did not happen in meetings. It happened on screens. Television screens. Phone screens, computer screens. From the first week, headlines moved fast. Very fast. Every speech became breaking news. Every decision became a warning. Every pause became a story. When Donald Trump spoke, cameras followed. When he stayed silent, cameras guessed. The media did not slow down. It accelerated. Panels filled the air. Experts returned. Old arguments came back again. Words like crisis and danger appeared daily. But something felt different this time. People were listening, but not believing. Years of loud coverage had changed habits. Viewers learned to wait, to compare, to doubt. In early 2025, a gap opened. The gap between headlines and daily life. News showed fear, but markets stayed calm. News showed chaos, but people went to work. This gap confused many journalists. For years, media controlled the rhythm. Now, the rhythm belonged to data, inflation numbers, employment reports, trade flows. Facts moved slower than headlines, but they stayed longer. Social media added more noise. Short clips spread fast. Context disappeared. A sentence without tone, a clip without time, a headline without balance. Anger traveled faster than truth. People shared what matched their feelings, not what matched reality. This made trust weaker. The government noticed this shift. Press briefings became shorter. Statements became simpler. No long explanations, no soft language, just numbers. And decisions. Supporters liked this. Critics called it cold, but the strategy was clear. Speak less, act more. Traditional media reacted with pressure, more investigation, more opinion. Some reports were strong, careful, fact-based. Others chased emotion. Ratings mattered, and trust continued to fall. Polls showed a strange result. People trusted institutions less, but they trusted personal experience more. What they paid, what they earned, what they saw. This changed power. Media no longer defined reality alone. Reality pushed back. This did not mean the media was useless. It meant it was questioned. Good journalism still mattered. But loud journalism lost value. The phrase fake news returned, not as a joke, as a weapon. It was used too often, sometimes unfairly, but it worked. People stopped reacting instantly. They waited. The relationship between power and media changed. In the past, media chased leaders. In 2025, leaders waited for media to calm down. Silence became a tactic. When Trump ignored criticism, it grew louder. Then it faded. This cycle repeated. The public learned it. By mid-year, something unexpected happened. Media tone softened. Not everywhere, not fully. But analysis replaced panic. Data replaced drama. Trust did not return. But balance improved. This chapter is not about blame. It is about change. The media did not fail completely, but it lost control. People learned to filter, and once filtering begins, the power shifts. The question was no longer, who is right? It became, who exaggerates less? This was dangerous, but also necessary. A democracy needs media, but it also needs restraint. By the end of summer 2025, one lesson stood out. Noise can hide truth, but it cannot replace it. Screens will always shout, but reality whispers and stays. As trust continued to move, the next test waited quietly. Not on screens, not in studios, but at borders, at checkpoints, and in human stories that numbers cannot fully explain. And that was where the pressure would turn personal. Chapter 6. Lines, Limits, and Human Stories. The sixth test did not begin in offices. It began at the border. Long lines. Cold mornings, bright lights. In 2025, borders became more than maps. They became messages. For Donald Trump, borders were about control. Clear rules, clear limits, clear answers. The tone changed fast. Orders were signed. Procedures tightened. Enforcement increased. The message was simple. The rules are real again. Supporters felt relief. They spoke about safety, about order, about fairness. Critics felt alarm. They spoke about families, about fear, about compassion. Both sides were right, in different ways. Border crossings dropped quickly. Numbers told that story. Fewer illegal entries, more checks, faster returns. Data showed control improving. But data did not show faces. At checkpoints, officers worked longer hours. They followed clearer instructions. They made faster decisions. Pressure moved from confusion to responsibility. This reduced chaos. But it increased weight. Every decision mattered. Legal immigration also changed. Some processes became faster. Others became stricter. Documents mattered more. Deadlines mattered more. For some, this was good news. For others, it was a closed door. Asylum rules became narrower. Claims were reviewed faster. Rejections increased. The goal was speed. Speed reduces backlogs, but it also reduces time. Time to explain, time to breathe. Human stories did not stop. They became quieter. Families waited. Children slept on benches. Officers followed rules. The system moved. Media cameras returned to the border. Images spread fast. One image told one story. Another told the opposite. The truth sat between. The border became less chaotic, but more severe. Smugglers adapted. Routes changed. Prices rose. Criminal networks did not disappear. They adjusted. This showed an uncomfortable fact. Borders alone do not stop movement. They redirect it. Inside the United States, the debate continued. Cities argued. States disagreed. Some local leaders welcomed control. Others resisted cooperation. The federal message stayed firm. Follow the law. This created legal fights. Court cases grew. Judges paused some actions. The system pushed back. Trump's response was direct. Pressure increased. Language hardened. He did not soften. This pleased supporters. It worried moderates. Public opinion split again. But something changed beneath the noise. People started asking different questions. Not, is it kind? But, does it work? Results mattered more than slogans. The border was calmer. Not calm, but calmer. Fewer emergency situations, more order. The cost was emotional. The benefit was control. Neither side fully won. By mid-2025, one truth became clear. Borders are not only lines, they are mirrors. They show what a country values and what it fears. In 2025, the United States chose limits, clear ones. This did not end the story. It sharpened it. Because borders do not exist alone. They connect to work, to identity, to belonging. And when pressure builds at the edge, it moves inward, toward communities, toward politics, toward power itself. The border test did not finish the debate. It moved it. And the next chapter would ask a harder question. What happens when pressure reaches the center? When institutions resist? when power meets limits inside the system. That battle was quieter, but deeper, and it was already unfolding. Chapter 7. Power Meets the System. The seventh test was quiet. No crowds, no chants, no breaking news. It happened inside buildings, courts, agencies, committees. This was where power slowed down. In 2025, Donald Trump pushed hard. Orders moved fast. Deadlines were short. Patience was thin. But the system did not move at the same speed. Judges asked questions. Agencies reviewed language. Lawyers read every line. This was not rebellion. It was procedure. For Trump, this felt familiar. He had faced it before. In his first term, resistance surprised him. In 2025, it did not. He expected it. The difference was preparation. Appointments mattered more. Loyalty mattered more. Speed mattered more. Still, limits appeared. Some orders were paused. Others were blocked. Court dates filled calendars. The system spoke in delays. Supporters grew angry. They saw votes ignored. They saw decisions slowed. Critics felt relief. They saw balance. They saw protection. Both sides used the same word: democracy. Inside federal agencies, tension rose. Career officials followed rules. New leaders demanded action. Meetings became shorter. Emails became careful. Silence became common. No one wanted to make mistakes. Mistakes could become headlines or lawsuits. This slowed work. Trump reacted with pressure. Public criticism, private warnings. Some officials resigned. Others stayed quiet. The machine creaked. Congress was divided. Bills stalled. Compromises failed. Parties spoke past each other. This was not new. But the pace felt sharper. Trump did not seek unity. He sought results. When blocked, he moved sideways. Executive actions replaced laws. Temporary rules replaced long plans. This worked sometimes. It failed others. The system absorbed the pressure. Courts became the center. Rulings shaped policy. Judges became powerful voices. This worried many Americans. Power was shifting, not to voters, not to leaders, to interpretation. The Constitution became a battlefield. Every word mattered. Every comma mattered. This slowed everything, but it also protected everything. Trump criticized this openly. He called it obstruction. He called it weakness. But he followed the rulings. Mostly. That mattered. The system held. Not because it was fast, but because it was stubborn. This revealed a deep truth. Strong leaders test systems. Strong systems test leaders. In 2025, both were tested. Some reforms advanced, others died quietly. Agencies learned to adapt. Leaders learned to wait. Frustration grew. Inside the White House, strategy changed. Focus narrowed. Priorities tightened. Less ambition. More precision. This was not surrender. It was adjustment. By late summer, a pattern formed. Big changes moved slowly. Small changes moved fast. Trump leaned into the small. Rules, budgets, appointments. Power became detailed, less dramatic, more technical. The public noticed less, but effects stayed. This chapter was not loud, but it was important. It showed limits, not limits of authority alone, but limits of speed. The United States system was built to slow power, even popular power. In 2025, that design worked. Not perfectly, not smoothly, but it worked. And as pressure met resistance, another question emerged. If the system can slow power, can it also guide it? Or will both sides break trust further? The final test was coming, not in courts, not at borders, but in the future itself, and how Americans would choose to remember this year. Chapter 8. What 2025 Leaves Behind. The year did not end with a bang. No final speech, no clear victory. It ended with questions. In late 2025, the noise slowed. Markets moved as usual. Borders stayed firm. Courts continued their work. Life went on. And that was the point. When Donald Trump returned, many expected shock. They expected collapse. They expected chaos. What they got was pressure. Pressure on systems. Pressure on habits. Pressure on beliefs. 2025 did not destroy institutions. It tested them. Some bent, some resisted, some adapted. None stayed the same. The economy did not fall apart. It slowed, it adjusted, it survived. Trade did not collapse. It shifted, it hardened, it became honest. Alliances did not disappear. They changed shape. They demanded effort. Media did not vanish. It lost control. It gained competition. Borders did not close the world. They drew lines. They forced choices. Courts did not stop power. They slowed it. They shaped it. This is what 2025 leaves behind. Not answers, but evidence. For Trump's supporters, the year proved something. Strong leadership can move fast. It can break habits. It can force clarity. For critics, the year proved something else. Speed has costs. Pressure hurts people. Power needs limits. Both views are incomplete alone. Together, they tell a fuller story. The biggest change was not policy. It was perception. People stopped waiting for perfection. They watched results instead. They asked fewer moral questions. They asked more practical ones. Does it work? Does it last? What is the cost? This shift matters. It changes politics beyond one man, beyond 1 year. 2025 showed that trust is fragile. Once broken, it does not return easily. It must be rebuilt slowly, with consistency, with honesty, not with slogans. Trump did not unite the country. He did not heal it, but he exposed it. He showed where patience ended, where anger lived, where silence grew. He showed that systems survive pressure, but not without scars. The danger ahead is simple. Pressure can become habit. Speed can replace thought. Force can replace trust. But the opportunity is also clear. Systems can learn. Voters can mature. Institutions can adapt. 2025 did not choose the future. It opened it. The question now belongs to everyone. Not just leaders, not just parties, citizens. What kind of strength do they want? What kind of limits do they accept? What kind of truth do they demand? History will not remember every decision of 2025. It will remember the direction, whether pressure led to balance or to deeper division, whether clarity became wisdom or rigidity. The year of Trump ends here, but the story does not, because 2025 was not about one man. It was about a moment when the world learned again. Strong systems are not silent. They argue. They resist. They survive. And strong democracies are not comfortable. They are tested. The test is over. The lesson remains. And the future is still waiting for the next choice.